Welcome, listeners, to the Traveler Chronicles, where the enchanting world of Extrayus comes to life. I'm Dungeon Master Eguile, your guide through the pivotal scenes in our thrilling Dungeons & Dragons homebrew campaign. Join us as we embark on adventures with the Travelers, a diverse group of heroes, each with their own unique reason for traveling the world. Together we'll explore the rich lore and vibrant landscapes of Extrayus, filled with magic, mystery, and unforgettable moments. And don't miss out on our special segment, Traveler's Tidings with Luna, where reporter Luna, played by my wonderful wife, DnDWife, interviews intriguing characters from our world, bringing their stories to life in delightful, immersive conversations. Whether you're a seasoned dungeon master seeking inspiration or a newcomer eager to dive into a fantastical journey, the Traveler Chronicles has something for everyone. So grab your gear and prepare for adventure. The world of Extrayus awaits. Welcome back, travelers, to another exciting episode of the Traveler's Chronicles. I'm your host, DM Eguile, and joining me as always is my incredible partner in adventure and creative heart of the couple of nerds, DnDWife.
Hey everyone, we're thrilled to have you with us today. This episode is going to dive deep into the chaos of the gifts and curse system as we see Drexla and Captain V face off against the dangerous Psycho 60. It's packed with action, tension, and some unexpected twists.
That's right. Today we'll be breaking down the gang's first attempt to capture Drexla and how Captain V risks everything to save her. Plus, Luna, our in-world reporter, will be speaking with Captain V himself to give his thoughts on leadership and close calls.
So grab your dice, get comfortable, and let's dive into this latest adventure in Extrayus.
So obviously in the previous episode, we had spoken a little bit about the curses and gift system.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You know, we had mostly focused on Bricky's, and I had mentioned about Captain V's particular curse, being this, what most people would probably be kind of angry at, of having the lightning hit you every time you roll a nat 20. But, you know, that was always a pretty standard one, you know, and we do see it quite often. But as we were showing with the Bricky one on the last episode, some of the more unique ones finally started to reveal themselves.
Yeah,
because some of them, I think, required a few more triggers than just the character or the player, in this case, rolling a nat 20. That happens. You know,
consistently
50, 60
enough
times a session, you know, so there's a lot more chances for that to go down than some of the more unique ones. And so this was a time where we finally got to see another one of these curses, and especially one of the unique ones, right? And so the difference too is, so it's like Bricky's is this kind of like internal thing, right? Like, so he gets rendered unconscious, loses his shadow, Peter Pan, ha ha ha.
A lot of stuff happens inside.
The funny thing with Drexla's, though, is she essentially rolled a curse, and it's essentially an homage to Tarantino's the Crazy 88, and so she had to roll for the number of gang members, and then we gave them the name to not have to have any, you know, problems.
Issues.
The Psycho 60. And so what this was essentially was, for whatever random reason, she had insulted this gang, and they are now tasked with just getting her.
They just got to get her.
Now, what's cool is that the player, Dan, ended up incorporating it more into his backstory to kind of explain how this started. Yeah. With it being that, you know, these people, this group of kind of like biker gang kind of types, right? Yeah. Come in and they ask for a device to help the, you know, the leader not sleep. And so Drexla decides to make it in her own Drexla way, which is horrible in the beginning because she takes everything quite literally. So she builds like this shocking headband. Oh my. And of course, not wanting to, you know, give up on your task makes it where it doesn't come off.
Of course, because he never wants to sleep.
Right. Yeah, you said not to sleep. And so essentially infuriating this group, the boss has this thing on that only she can take off.
Oh, it must be slowly driving him insane.
She forced this group to now no longer be necessarily out to kill her, but more out to capture her.
Because they need her.
Right, so the player's own decision to kind of incorporate into their backstory also changed a little bit of how this curse mechanic worked.
Yeah, I love that.
And I found it as it kind of was this really cool thing, because it was the same kind of thing that happened with Eric and Bricky.
Yeah,
true. You know, it's kind of a similar dichotomy of that, you know, Bricky changed it a little bit based on his character being this, you know, creature that doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
But then that ended up changing how the whole curse interacted with the gameplay.
Yep, and because of who he is, it interacts differently with his shadow.
And it made and because of the character creation that he made, it made it where the shadow wasn't just like a shadow, but could be potentially a whole nother person.
Yeah,
which is what it
turned out to be.
Which ended up being Shad.
Yeah, exactly.
So this was another one where it's a cool little dynamic, and in the early part of the story, Drexla was tight-lipped.
Yep,
there was no mention of any of this in the early part of the campaign.
In
the first couple of sessions, he was very keen on not sharing this information that at any moment, theoretically, these group could just appear.
Yeah, they could just show up.
Now, as we spoke about this, and we have talked about our character creation back in the beginning, we had selected which continent we were going to be on, right? And we happened to be on the Mirren continent. And as we had written, and unbeknownst to the player, he wrote them as mostly being a Hume gang.
Yeah.
So by him doing that, he also saved himself, because now starting at the Hume continent, or Mirren continent, excuse me, there's not a whole lot of Humes.
It's real easy to tell.
It's not like I can make a base of operations for like all these guys that look exactly different than everyone else, and it's going to be, not obvious.
Right.
So it really was they kind of were thinking when they first got like, ha, I'm not going to run into any of these people for a while. And so it took a while until the party finally arrived at Fort Irrigan.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for him to kind of be more protective, because now you were at a location that there were a mix of people. There were Humes, there were Hellscar, there were Dimmen, right? There were a lot of mixing.
True.
And in the early part, or actually, I'm sorry, I'll actually get a little ahead, not even at Irrigan yet. This was in Aranoka, but because they didn't know about Fort Irrigan, that's what I was trying to reference.
Yeah, we didn't know
because
yet.
you didn't know that there was a port so close.
Yeah.
And so at this point, what the point I was trying to get to was that during parts of the story in different areas, Drexla had been like gathering a lot of materials. And when I say gathering, and you can't see my hands, I give the biggest quotes to it, because that's what it was. It was much the fairy, like, I'm going to take and borrow things that people aren't using.
Yeah.
And it was real funny in the beginning, because it was like, oh, that's how he's going to get his parts. But I'm laughing because every time he's doing it, I'm just like, you're just spreading more information.
People know you're there,
that is fairy-like, right? Like, people are going, hey, stuff's missing, really tiny things. Well, if a group of people is looking
and they know your MO,
so what ended up really happening was there was a lot of subtle kind of clues thrown out in the early part. And so I believe it was like, some of the party ran into some of these individuals, and they're kind of these hooded figures to hide their kind of the fact that they're, Humes.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting because, here the wanted papers, and it's crudely drawn of this like angry little Drexla, and it was funny because even though the newer player, Bogbean, was trying to kind of share the information, the player for Dan and Drexla were just kind of like, it's nothing.
Nah.
It's for something else. It's probably from me stealing things. It's no biggie, which I was just
we don't care.
laughing at.
Oh my, that's not the attitude to take.
Right. It was really going in to make that different. And that's what I love about the gift and curses system, right? So because Drexla had this gift, it made it where it was just this kind of ticking time bomb. And so I really wanted to wait for that moment where she was her guard was let down the most. And so the scene that really kind of picked it up was it was where Drexla and V had kind of gone off to the side. And this was going on kind of congruent with Bogbean and Bricky's adventure and doing stuff. So kind of the groups were all spread out. And then as they were going on, Drexla decided to go up ahead and just kind of dart off to the side. She kind of has that habit of looking for various
scouting or whatever.
And so it was that perfect moment where I'm like, now's the time to strike. Because she's alone.
Yep.
The nearest person to her is Captain V. And at this point, I don't really know what Captain V's going to do.
Right, or what his motivations
whether
are.
He's going to run away, whether he's going to go into the fight. And so it was really kind of like a test to see, okay, we got to see kind of what would Bogbean do when Bricky falls, as like a new player sees kind of
a little test,
the craziness of sometimes what the veteran players get themselves into. And here was going to be another one, right?
Little test for our newbies.
And so it was really funny because it just made it that different kind of spin on it because of the fact that it was, again, another kind of pairing of the rookie and the veteran, and the veteran doing the crazy thing that you would think the rookie would have done, but in fact it's the veteran getting themselves into danger going by themselves.
Yeah.
And so really to kind of break down kind of this scene, and it's the easiest way to look at it is, you know, essentially you got Drexla who's just flying around, and she's made a habit now of just like staying kind of a little bit above the ground, but not obviously high enough.
Not too high up, yeah.
But
about head height, I imagine.
You know, but the idea is that, you know, Drexla's about a foot tall. So it's not like she's inches.
She's not invisible.
She's not invisible.
Yeah.
So it is that like you're just starting, and then we stress that flight is such a unique thing in Extrayus. So, you know, the idea that you're just this hidden thing didn't really get played out. And so what really was funny is that because she's going out, she's not paying attention, but, you know, she's being paid attention to. And so
people are watching.
you know, and now as she's separated herself out, the biggest thing that kind of think the surprise to Drexla is that, you know, these guys came equipped to hunt little game.
Oh, yes.
You know, so the big trick was the fact is that they weren't like shooting arrows at Drexla. They were firing these huge freaking nets that were, you know, metal. And so the whole thing was at first Drexla was like, oh, it's okay. It's, you know, if it's a, but when she got hit by the first one and it's being a, you know, a challenge to her strength as a 1 foot tall little winged creature, obviously it's just going to drop her to the ground. And it's that moment too, because previous to this scene, she did have kind of a moment where she was almost captured.
Yeah.
But it was, oh, I'm captured in a, you know, a cloth bag, and she kind of cut her way out.
Yeah, so she was like,
it wasn't a big deal. But this was obviously a different. So again, it was that you get that player kind of thinking they're in a safe place, and then you just pull the wool out. And so as Drexla is kind of at this point, it is where that moment where, you know, you kind of look to V's player, and it's you know, you're not trying to metagame, but obviously you're seeing this go on.
Yeah, you're like,
and so you know, it was kind of that moment of, you know, where is that player going to put themselves? Are they going? Because either way, they could have gone. They could go and rescue for help, or they could go and jump in at the last moment.
Or they could just leave and go about their business.
Yeah, so it was really kind of interesting to see, you know, as it gets basically, they're starting to surround her because she's kind of running out of options. And I think the dice was just not with Drexla that day.
Yeah, it wasn't working. She couldn't get out.
And the dice rolls were just being trash, single digits. And so it was interesting to see, you know, the newbie then just kind of make the knee-jerk call of just to dash in.
Right.
You know, and it is funny because obviously we are still very low level. I think you guys are like level 2 at this point.
Yeah, at most.
And he's a level 2 rogue. So we're talking at most 15, 16 HP.
Yeah, we're not that high.
And so because there's no mention of what these guys are or not, nobody really knows what they're capable of.
Right.
So, you know, as V rushes in, he is pretty much almost instantaneously knocked out.
Yeah.
And
peppered with arrows.
Takes near like a damn near mortal blow and is just rendered unconscious instantly.
Drops almost immediately. But he served as a really good distraction
right
for Drexla to get out of her trap.
You know, and this was the funny part because, you know, us at the table, this was starting to become almost like a little bit of a trend, unfortunately, with Captain V and him kind of falling and back.
But it
was
tough.
To me, it was more of it kind of explained kind of the fighting like the fighting attitude of V, right? It was the very like, you know, it's more for the team, it's not for himself. You know, if he goes down, whatever, you know, he's the rogue. He runs in, he gets his stab, and if he doesn't kill them in the first shot, maybe he can dodge.
Yeah.
You know, but obviously at level 2, a rogue is not quite gifted with all their abilities quite yet. So it was kind of that scene where even I'm going, okay, unless it's like I'm running in to grab Drexla and run, but the moment it was like, I draw my weapon, it's like, and you're gonna get smoked.
Yeah.
But it is that one where it's like you try to put situations as a DM where it's like, these are those moments where it's the cut and run. But then when your players decide to fight, it's kind of that, oh no. And so it really was a moment to where we had another issue where it was going to be, you know, is the new player going to die again?
Oh, yeah.
Because luckily, you know, as the scene played out, you know, as it always seems to work out, the dice suddenly kick up for Drexla. Yep. She's able to rolls a nat 20 on the freaking net, pulls it off, and then just starts going to town on these two guys, taking them out with one shot.
Especially seeing her new friend and boss go down in a hail of bolts.
So she, you know, she gets them down, but then it's like that. It's that funny moment because at this point it's like, okay, we're good. but she has literally no way of actually bringing up V,
dear,
right?
yeah.
Like, she's not a healer at this point. She has no gadgets yet that will help her in this situation. I don't even think she was proficient in medicine.
No.
So like a medicine check was just going to be
Out
trash.
of the question, yeah.
And so it was where it's like, it gets to that funny moment where, you know, your player's just kind of looking for, and it was that thing where it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's obviously beyond injured and stuff like that. But the thought process of that, I have to hide the unconscious body to me is what really sold the scene of just,
definitely.
I just couldn't, because to me visually, it's just like you're watching like Drexla scoot V's kind of
slowly,
like body,
because it's just one foot
slowly
trying
dragging him through the sand, as like
body.
there's just like an obvious trail of blood in the sand.
Yep.
As he's being, and it's like his feet are hanging out of this bale of hay that she puts on top of
at the end of the trail.
To where at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, anybody with eyes is going to be able to follow.
Yeah, he's not really well hidden.
You know, but it was kind of that
trying her
humorous thing
best.
because she's trying, right?
Yeah.
She's frantic, and it was that reversal, right? So before we had Bogbean, our new player, trying to figure out what to do,
and with all her strength dragging Bricky to
and the
camp.
Same thing. No skills, no magic, no ability to bring up a dying friend.
Yeah, no way.
You know, but this time it's the veteran player, and lo and behold, the veteran player is just as confused, doesn't know what to do, and is just frantically trying to figure out a play in order to keep one of their friends alive.
Yeah.
You know, but luckily, you know, as you know, they're in this small area, they are able to regroup with the rest of the
to
team,
find each other.
and it's really funny because the way that like, Drexla is explaining it, it's more of like, oh, there's still all these guys, we need to go. I don't know how many more, because in her head, there's 60 of them.
There's an
so
army.
She's thinking, oh, they're all here now. This is a
They're
wave
coming
of
to
enemy.
get me.
So she's telling, so the party's like getting geared up, ready to go, and they just show up. Then
it's a massacre.
You know, showing up to just kind of these like two corpses that are on the ground, and then another one around the corner underneath the a bush of hay. And it's really at this point like it's just way more questions. As everyone is just like hyped up for a fight, and there's just nobody around.
Nothing to do, nothing to see.
You know, so to me it was such a good scene to focus on, just because of the idea that it was this dichotomy of the new player, veteran player playing together, and each one kind of showing that like it doesn't matter how long you've played, the craziness, the chaotic
scenarios,
and your first knee-jerk kind of reaction is always the best and most fun indeed. It might be the craziest. It's like, why did I ever think of doing that? It doesn't matter because it was awesome.
Right, they can always take you off guard. There's always something new to experience, even if you've been playing D&D for 20 years.
Yeah, and so that's why the scene really stuck to me, because again, it was another chance for us to see the gift system and the curse system kick in
and play
and see it kind of play off, as well as kind of reminding the players of do not let your guard down. I think this was kind of the pivotal moment where I think the group kind of started to unanimously be like, okay, the smallest we'll travel in is 3.
Yeah.
And there was like no more groups of 2.
Buddy system.
Yeah, no more just groups of 2 wandering off in Aranoka because that's been causing every single problem.
Yeah, we've been having issues.
And I
3.
think like for the next few sessions, you guys traveled as a group to most of the other locations.
Yeah, we stuck together. It was just a little traumatizing to have nearly lost 2 players in one go.
But obviously, if we want to get a little better information, there's no better than our on-the-ground reporter, Luna. So I think she's probably going to be there with V as they're kind of getting him back on his feet. So it might be better to get it, straight from the horse's mouth,
we're
essentially.
We're going to tune in over here. Luna? Thank you, DnDWife. This is Luna with Traveler Tidings here, sitting with Captain V over here after his near-death experience. This has been quite a hectic day today. 2 near-death experiences in one go, but yours has been the latest. Captain V, can you tell us a little bit of what you felt in that moment going down for a friend?
Well, I felt a lot of pain going down, and I don't remember a lot happened after that. Oh man, that hurt a lot.
Oh dear. And can you tell us, is there a beyond? Did you see a light? Is there anything beyond this mortal coil?
No.
No? Was it all black, darkness?
Yeah,
Nothing?
honestly, it was pretty boring.
Oh dear. Well, that doesn't bode well for our future.
I don't know how to tell Tobias that or not, but I don't want to break it to him.
Oh, well, perhaps we shall do that slowly, so as to not, cause too many issues with him. I wouldn't want
just
that.
rip the Band-Aid off now, honestly.
All right. Let's step away from existential sort of questions, and I'd like to speak to you a little bit about your leadership. You know, we saw you go down, essentially, metaphorically, in flames for your newest crewmate, who you just met only a few short days ago. Why did you? What drove you to risk your life?
Well, I mean, she's part of the crew. You know, we can't leave each other behind, and we have to stick out for each other, and you know, it's a big part of that. And being that above her, she's been for a short time, but hasn't changed where she relies on the team or the crew, I should say.
Well, I have got to say, it is quite amazing to see your dedication to your crew, no matter how new or how senior they are in your established pay. That is phenomenal. I really appreciate that. And that speaks a lot to your code as a captain of a ship. What motivates you to act so selflessly? How do you feel about almost dying yet again?
Well, I mean, it does. It should probably dissuade me, but it does. It won't really change the need and the amount I give out to people, and I give my word, and it means something, and it should mean something to everyone who gets that, you know, and it should never change that subject from it. They should always be able to rely on that from me, you know.
Oh, that is quite lovely to hear. That's so endearing, and I'm sure Drexler appreciates it. She was quite effusive in her thanks of you. One would say she was blushing. Is there anything you would like to say on that front? Perhaps some hearts brewing on the horizon?
I'm not sure what you're getting from that. I mean, she's just a good part of the crew, an essential team member, you know, and really helps out the team. I mean, I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for her help.
I see. Well, I sure wouldn't want to read too much into a situation. I wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable. Captain V, can you tell us a little bit more, though, on... are you sure that there is nothing out there?
Between what?
Out there in the beyond. Are you sure?
Absolutely. It was pitch black. Nothing was going on. Really, honestly, I kind of don't. I don't even want to go back. It was not fun. It was boring. It's terrible.
Dear. Well, we will do our best to make sure that you do not ever have to go back.
Yeah, I hope so.
With that, I will leave you to recover from your, dire experience today, and I will move over to Thomas, your player. He's had a much better day than you.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today on Traveler Tidings.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, it's going great for me, not so much for V.
Yeah, he's having a rough time.
Yeah, that's
sure.
It's been a troublesome time for him. But as the player for Captain V, he's had quite a bit of trouble with his curse. We've seen, honestly, he's been the one we've seen the most out of everyone's curse of. So it's quite interesting. But how do you feel having him struck by lightning every time he rolls a nat 20?
You know, it's kind of fun in multiple ways. Like it sucks in the way that like everyone gets excited and then you see it and you get to go, oh boy, I get to tell someone about what's about to happen to me. And I think it adds a lot of fun duality to a 20 in the sense that like it can be beneficial, cannot be. It can do so much, but surprisingly more than you would have thought it happening. True.
You know, this curse has certainly added an unpredictable element to every battle. How does that affect certain moments of triumph that are sort of accompanied by a lightning strike?
Well, it can scare me varying on the level of my HP, really.
Oh, dear.
I mean, I imagine, I don't think that's happened yet. It's got me close, though. It certainly got me close, though, but it does add that moment of just really, like, happiness of, like, you're going to hit him really hard, and then you have to remember, I'm also about to be hit back at
Quite
it.
hard.
You know, like, it makes you really contemplate risks or like what's going on with anything instead of it being like, oh, sure, fine, like I'll just hit a 20 and I'll be okay with it. Right. It's like, oh, I'll hit a 20 and then like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to still hit my face on the wall, you know?
True. And, you know, with that being said, you've had so many near-death experiences at this point with your character. it's we can count now. We're keeping track now. So, you know, it's really shaped the way we view your character. But how does that shape the way Captain V views his own life and death situations?
I think that it helps impact a lot of, like, hesitation. I think that V could have in a lot of moments of, like, looking into it and deciding, like, is this something that I should do still? And it varies on what, if he's given his word to it, is this a risk that he thinks he can get out of, like, and calculating out, like, is God going to hurt me for this literally? Or is, like, I can maybe get away with it and, like, have a time to see what happens to it. And I think that
take that chance.
It can cause hesitation in good and bad. And I think that's happened even semi-recent to an idea of, like, looking into a scenario to predict, like, to myself without metagaming my own self into that scenario, thinking about what he would do, what he would perceive it as, being as I have fallen multiple times at this point. And it still seems like I'm not changing much. So I think I'm a little too stubborn. He's probably too stubborn.
You know, that your actions certainly tend to denote a certain recklessness. What does that bode for Captain V's future? How do you see yourself surviving in this adventure with such a reckless attitude?
I mean, hopefully calm down, but I don't think the other players are necessarily making that easy to not be as reckless. But maybe as we're going on, be more precise on how reckless that could be, or like maybe telling a little back, or just letting out the certain moments of it being a little too crazy, you know?
I see. So it is your party's sort of
they're in a bad influence, terrible
that you are in such dire situations. Sometimes.
It's their fault, really. It's not mine. I would never put myself in that moment.
I see. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Thomas. It's been really insightful to see how you play Captain V and what his motivations are.
It's always fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Traveler Tidings. This is Luna handing it back to DnDWife and DM Eguile. Are you there? Thank you, Luna, for such an insightful interview. It was certainly interesting to see Captain V's take on his own mortality.
Right. I know. So obviously we're still joined here with Thomas.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We're just kind of now, as we've been doing now for these last few, just kind of breaking down together, kind of looking at more of kind of the background of the scene, kind of getting more questions answered and all that. And really, I think the first thing that I wanted to kind of have a little discussion is just more of, obviously with this curse, Thomas, I feel bad because I feel that it's more even deeper in the fact of, combat's one thing, but when, how does it feel like doing an insight check? You're looking at a door and then all of a sudden you're like, I rolled that 20.
Dude, but those are all these times that, like, I'll get it. It's like, sometimes I'll be in combat, but I feel so much more that I've done it, like, hey, I'm gonna look at a rock. Like, what's this rock telling me? And you're like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I rolled a 20. Well, apparently that rock is telling me a lot more than I thought.
It's a spiritual, it's a very charged
rock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that was, and at this point in the story, I think it's still kind of not understood how well the mechanics are of the lightning yet. You haven't quite figured out, like, if there's a roof above you.
Yeah, we're going to experiment.
Did you kind of worry for a while that it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, this is magical lightning.
Right.
It's going to find
all the time, no matter where.
I'll be in the bath, and I'm going to roll in that 20. It's going to open a door.
Just like flying through the windows,
or the
like
fireplace.
It's a lightning hand that shows you.
Just like a little one appears above my head at all times.
Right? Do you think maybe that was going to be how the curse was going to play out?
Initially I did, but then, like, I remember I think I talked to Dan a little and, like, asked about how his opinion on it, and he was like, no, like, John's gonna be a little more realistic about it. So then I thought, well, it's just gonna be like a super bolt, like, it's going through whatever to hit me, and it's like, I have to, like, be like the Wile E. Coyote, like, holding up a stick or something and
be
praying
ready for
everything.
And so, like, at that point, that was the hilarious thing is that it really was, out of every single person, yours was the one that was, like, right front and center first session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were like, 4 or 5 rolls in, and you got
It's
a
already
20.
natural 20.
Yeah, hey, 5% isn't that hard to get?
Apparently.
And the hilarious thing too is that being a rogue, you find a lot of ways to roll with advantage.
Yeah.
So you even have
That's
even
tough,
more of a
too.
chance.
Yeah.
And so the thing with this scene that I always was kind of curious, being that you were the rookie player at this point, did you kind of feel like obviously Dan with Drexla takes a lot of risks?
Yeah.
Were you thinking that like he was being risky on purpose, or were you like, is he baiting me into doing risky stuff?
I don't think he ever believed he was baiting me. I think that Dan genuinely does the things that he believes in the character to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that when I did it, it's kind of became one of those like just second nature to it. Like thinking of like, oh yeah, this is how I react to something like this. But then I have to remember like, oh yeah, I'm probably gonna have to roll for something like this to like trying to help as a character instead of being like, I mean, I could have just left him, but I wouldn't feel like right about it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, on that same point too, one of the things I was always interested in, and I think DnDWife and I talk about a lot, is just, were you quite expecting for Drexla to be like, hey, I want to be a pirate too?
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
I was like, given the backstory you and I had created for the Lost Souls pirate, adding My Little Pony was going to be like, I was like, there's no way. He's going to be like, my thing.
Yeah, like,
and you said yes.
I mean, why not? You know, like
Extra
if
hands.
he was genuine about it, but also then I thought about like Gokir and like the thought of like, especially what has happened of like stuff and just being like, oh yeah, dude, like you should totally like go talk to that guy. He's great.
Yeah,
he is.
I
won't
just
shut up.
it was that whole thing too, because it was also that moment where it was okay. Well, here's Drexla saying, hey, can I join the team? And it's like, okay, well maybe V will be like, here's our story, and you were like, nope. I don't think Drexla got to learn V's story for like another like 6 sessions.
Yeah, I mean,
So the whole time I'm like, okay, merry band of pirates who are on a death run that are on suicide watch, and My Little Pony inventor joining with Sparkles, and this is
he did offer to make me more money. Like
True.
The
That is true.
immediate second was like, hey,
And
I
he
can do this for you. I
He
can
also
sell
offered
this.
to make you like gadgets and stuff
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So it's like
So
in such a light of like, even as a person,
bargain.
just like, oh, hey, you want to join my crew? I can sell stuff for you easily. I can make you stuff for free. It's like, oh, geez, do I have to pay for it? No? All right, shit.
Win-win.
like, and so a big part of I think what started in V's development was the code.
Yeah.
Now, was this built in like character creation, or is this something that you're now having like V kind of
Developing.
adopt and develop as he goes?
I had it initially like try to work on because I worked a lot with, especially with like my girlfriend about it, and just like figuring out what to do without limiting it too hard, not doing too one way or the other, and trying to figure out such a median to like have freedom but also have limits. Like if I'm doing something, I have to be able to give my word to something, and that's kind of like the biggest part of it, was trying to figure out how to work a way around it to being that I want it to be him giving his word, but not like, because like people online be like something crazy like, yep, the minute you say it, you're stuck with them for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm a pirate also on suicide watch basically. Maybe giving my word and like working with it. I think the one thing I did incorporate from you was mostly doing like about like if they're on the crew, like we're gonna work to be that one specifically, like, hey, we're gonna look out, because who else is gonna look after us but ourselves?
They're your crew.
I mean, and this may even sound weird. Like as a DM, I don't want to know the code.
Yeah.
I kind of like that it is still, even we're like 27 sessions in. I don't even think the code's really been revealed.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
What
But I
V's
think it's
code
nice
is.
because then it doesn't have me even know exactly if I try to like mess with it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I know he has to do. I really
it's
don't.
organic.
As the DM, I don't really. I know bits and pieces. Like obviously, it's like never let a man down, or behind, and that kind of stuff. But it'll be interesting when it ever gets like written down or like grilled or zone of truth out of V or something.
Yeah.
Right. That'd be
Like
tough.
that would be something else. But like we've even a little bit gone through it. So.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was such a surprisingly emotional moment considering that Drexla barely knew V at that point. We'd only known each other for a couple weeks, maybe.
No, it was like...
also the travel and everything. Like, maybe a couple weeks,
yeah.
So it wasn't very long, but you'd formed these little bonds by her joining the crew and everything, and we really see that desperation she gets when she sees V's unconscious body and she's trying to get help. She can't do anything, so she sort of tries to hide him as best she can and tries to go get somebody that can help.
I would ask, at this point, were you like, okay, what's my next character going to be?
I don't think...
It was down number 2.
It was down number
sessions.
2. So then I was like, it's like cracking up the book. It's like at home. It's like, well, I did leave it on a page.
Yeah.
I don't think I was at the point of like too concerned because I didn't get the feeling of that of like, oh, well, I guess I'm a long gone cause. But I also was still learning how it worked.
Yeah.
Like initially.
I mean, to say at least, you are a long now added to the tradition of campaign starts with rogues.
Yeah.
Because when I started campaign 1, I had a rogue and I insta-killed him in the very first roll by getting a critical on him and doubling his HP. So when it ended up being you being, again, the player dropping and you're the rogue, it's like, I apparently can't balance for rogue.
It's like,
right,
don't do it.
At least not early level.
I think it shows like the rogue needs some levels before they can really kind of pick it up.
You kind of have to baby them a little bit. At the
but on the final note, obviously this was like, I think it was 3 total members of the Psycho 60.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a resurgence of them quite yet in the story, which is really interesting. Do you feel like, Thomas, that there's going to be probably a bigger impact once you guys get to more open, like, water?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's going to play a lot more because, like, I've talked to Dean about it and stuff like that since we've had, like, little talks as that. But I absolutely think that it would be way more, it's going to be way more impactful the farther we go and the more open it gets.
Because there's still 57 out there.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like, and there's like a big boss at every major number. So, it'll be really interesting to see that. But that is one of those, like, as to say, like, the more active curses that's there, but we don't see, where it's, unfortunately, Thomas, I know you get the one that we get to see pretty much 3 or 4 times. But I think, as we've seen now and jumping ahead, and we'll talk more about it, we've found ways to at least, we have another looming number that's another fun thing that we'll talk about later. But I think that's kind of the starting of V, because even as we get into his stories later on, that kind of personality, I think, is really stuck with him. And I think he really got that kind of... the kind of on a death wish, but you can kind of see that there is still kind of like a little bit of V reaching out for connection.
That glimmer of hope.
And so it's like that idea, we'll see when it gets to that point of, okay, is he going to be on that death wish, or is he going to have like a family kind of to pull back?
It's like he's trying to be like I don't care about anything, but then he's like, well, I kind of like it.
Just, if you care.
I have a feeling we'll see like V's gruff demeanor kind of soften over time. And really, I think the first step will be once he starts kind of revealing a little bit of his backstory. Because at this point, no one really knows what motivates V.
Right. We don't know. He's just a captain. Right
and
now.
You, as your player, was pretty good at keeping it pretty quiet.
pretty tight.
It's so funny to think about like how much people wanted it. But it's like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Oh, let's first this guy, though. Look at this guy.
Oh, yeah. It definitely, I think, you being reserved did cause more problems, but in my mind, created much more like opportunities for dialogue and instant for things. So we'll definitely see more as we go and do future travels. But definitely, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Traveler's Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed diving into the chaos of Drexla's encounter with the Psycho 60 and Captain V's heroic rescue.
It's always a blast sharing these moments with you all, and the mysteries of Extrayus just keep getting deeper. Remember, if you have any questions or want to chat about the episode, join us over on Discord.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support keeps us this journey going and helps us helps others join in on the adventure. And also, one last thank you. Thanks, Thomas, again, for giving us a little analysis.
Thank you so much, as always. You guys are the best.
Until next time, travelers, keep your dice rolling and your stories epic.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this episode of the Traveler Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed your journey through the world of Extrayus and the adventures of the travelers themselves. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us continue to bring the magic of Extrayus to life. Want to be part of the story? Join our community on Discord, where you can chat with us and the travelers themselves. Share your own adventures and dive even deeper into the world of Extrayus. Don't forget to check out our videos on the Couple of Nerds YouTube page for even more content, including behind-the-scenes looks, painting tutorials by DnDWife, and so much more. Thank you for being a part of our adventure. So keep rolling those dice, and may your journeys be filled with wonder and excitement. Till next time, on the next episode of the Traveler Chronicles.